October 31st might seem like just another date, but what if I told you that the choices you make right now, in these moments before that threshold, have the power to completely restructure everything that unfolds after? There's an energetic reorganization happening, a silent recalibration of your reality field that most people won't notice until it's already shifted. The universe has a way of opening small portals, brief windows where we can pause, recalibrate, and sync with what's coming. Right now, you're standing in one of those portals. Have you ever experienced a date on your calendar that carries an unusual weight? Nothing obvious marks it as special, yet it pulls at something deep inside you. You find yourself thinking about it, circling back to it mentally, sensing that it matters in ways you can't yet name. That's the energy surrounding October 31st for so many right now. It's a date that carries a frequency, a vibrational signature that announces itself before anything tangible manifests. The air feels charged with potential. There's a thickness to the silence, like the atmosphere before thunder. Something beneath the surface of your awareness already knows what's approaching, even if your conscious mind hasn't caught up yet. This isn't the kind of pressure that makes you panic. It's the kind that makes you pay attention. It's the quiet before a revelation breaks through. It's that collective breath humanity holds without realizing we're all doing it together. The external world appears unchanged, business as usual, yet the frequency has shifted. It's like those moments in deep conversation when everyone feels something significant is about to be said. Something that will change the tone of everything. You can't articulate it, but your body registers it. There's motion beneath the stillness, a restructuring you can't observe directly, but you instinctively know is happening. Consider the feeling you get while waiting for life-changing news. Whether it's a career opportunity, an important answer, or the resolution of something that could reshape your entire trajectory. The days leading up to that moment look ordinary from the outside. You're drinking the same coffee, following the same routines, having similar conversations. But internally, everything vibrates at a different frequency. Your awareness splits itself between what you're doing and what you're anticipating. You recognize the buildup even though nothing external has changed yet. That's the exact energy hovering around October 31st right now. The world continues its regular programming, but something in the fundamental rhythm has altered its tempo. This gentle tension isn't fear manifesting. It's a signal that your reality system is recalibrating. In consciousness and in life, major shifts rarely announce themselves with dramatic explosions. They begin as imperceptible waves moving through the field of possibility. A choice you made weeks ago, a person you encountered briefly, a thought you had and dismissed. These are the initial dominoes falling silently in dimensions you can't yet perceive. Over time, these ripples converge, building momentum until they reach a threshold where they become visible, where they cross from potential into manifestation. October 31st may simply be the convergence point, where all those invisible waves align into something you can finally witness. It's not mystical coincidence. It's momentum that's been building, finally revealing its direction. What makes this particularly fascinating is how this operates collectively. You might have noticed more people expressing feelings of restlessness or uncertainty lately. Plans seem to stall without clear reasons. Communication between people feels more fragile, more charged. These aren't random occurrences. Within interconnected consciousness fields, when one area begins its transformation, everything connected to it must subtly adjust to accommodate the shift. its causality rippling outward, multiplying through infinite interactions and relationships. The profound beauty of it is that even when we can't see the complete pattern, we're all actively participating in its unfolding. So the real question becomes, what if this isn't about searching for meaning in a calendar date, but rather about recognizing how your own consciousness responds to energetic thresholds? The true marker isn't time itself, it's where you place your attention. That sensation of something approaching might simply be your internal guidance system detecting change before it materializes in your physical reality. The field could already be reorganizing, waiting only for you to release your grip on how you think things should unfold. Sometimes being ready isn't about adding more effort, but about releasing the tension that blocks natural alignment. When we stop resisting the evolution that wants to move through us, synchronization happens organically. Perhaps what feels different about October 31st isn't the day at all. Perhaps it's that this threshold is activating something dormant within your awareness. Your perception sharpens. Decisions that seemed small suddenly carry more weight. Exchanges with others land with unexpected depth. The ease or resistance you feel in certain situations becomes a feedback mechanism, showing you which paths carry flow and which create friction. You begin catching more of these subtle signals, like noticing how certain opportunities feel clear and energizing, while others deplete you before you even begin. That's not randomness. That's information from the consciousness field you inhabit, guiding you through frequency rather than words. This moment before October 31st, then, might not be calling you to frantically prepare or strategize. It could be an invitation to heighten your awareness, to notice the patterns already speaking to you through your life, the themes that keep returning, the plans that keep delaying, or the gentle nudges you've been ignoring. Every signal, including the ones that frustrate you, carries intelligence within the pattern. If something larger is already in motion, perhaps the wisest response now isn't to push against the current, but to feel where it's naturally flowing. Sometimes aligning with what's coming means simply becoming still enough to sense which direction the energy is already moving. And here's something most people don't realize about these energetic thresholds. They're not arbitrary. October 31st sits at a unique intersection in the calendar. The final day of October, the eve before November begins, positioned right at the transition point between the harvest season and the descent into winter's introspection. Ancient cultures recognized this as a liminal space, a thin place where the veil between worlds becomes permeable. Whether you connect with that spiritual interpretation or not, there's something undeniable about the energy of transitions. Endings and beginnings carry a particular potency. They're not separate moments, but overlapping waves, and standing in that overlap creates a portal of possibility. Think about how you feel at dusk compared to noon. Noon is clarity, definition, everything visible and obvious. But dusk is transformation itself. Neither day nor night, but the space between. That's where magic happens. That's where old forms dissolve and new ones begin to take shape. October 31st carries that same liminal quality, amplified. It's not just any threshold. It's a cultural threshold, a collective marker that billions of people recognize as significant, even if for different reasons. And when collective attention focuses on a moment, it charges that moment with creative potential. Most of us feel secure when we're directing the show. It's our survival mechanism in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. When our plans line up cleanly and details fall into place as we expect, our nervous system relaxes. But here's the paradox that most people miss. Sometimes the control we cling to doesn't protect us at all. It actually becomes the barrier. That relentless drive to micromanage every detail, to force outcomes before they're ready, can slow down the very flow we're trying to access. It's like trying to weave a web while simultaneously pulling on every strand. The more you tighten your grip, the more tangled everything becomes. You can witness this dynamic in everyday moments. Someone crafts the perfect resume, spending weeks adjusting every word to match what they believe the employer wants. They submit it with cautious hope, then nothing. Silence. No response. No explanation. Meanwhile, another person completes their application quickly and authentically, trusting that what's meant for them will recognize them. Within days, they're having a conversation they never expected. You could dismiss this as luck, but it's actually evidence of how things move more smoothly when we stop forcing outcomes. This shows up powerfully in relationships as well. One person tries to script every interaction, attempting to prevent conflict before it even exists. Over time, the connection becomes rigid, performative, lifeless. Another person simply remains present, responds honestly, and allows silence to exist without filling it. That second approach feels riskier initially, yet it builds genuine intimacy. There's your irony. Control promises safety, but often creates distance. Surrender feels vulnerable at first, yet it creates the foundation for real stability to emerge. In systems theory, there's a clear pattern here. When excessive pressure builds within any system, whether it's a human body, a relationship dynamic, or an economic structure, the system generates counterforces to restore equilibrium. Every action creates a balancing reaction, and this feedback mechanism prevents total collapse. So when you or I try to overmanage our lives, the system itself introduces disruptions to bring things back into sustainable rhythm. Opportunities dissolve. Plans shift unexpectedly. Communication breaks down temporarily. This isn't punishment or failure. It's life's intelligence returning you to a pace that can actually sustain itself long-term. What looks like things falling apart is actually things rebalancing. If this understanding is shifting something in you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to this frequency as we continue exploring these consciousness principles together. Trust, then, isn't about becoming passive or giving up. It's about releasing resistance. It's choosing to let the process breathe instead of constricting around it. That choice feels quiet and unremarkable. It doesn't come with fanfare, but it fundamentally shifts how energy moves through your experience. Suddenly, what felt stuck begins flowing again. People call this luck or synchronicity, but systems recognize it as flow returning once obstacles are removed. It's the same principle as a river clearing once the debris blocking its path is swept away. Life clears itself when we stop trying to manufacture outcomes through sheer force. Think about how water moves through landscape. It doesn't fight against terrain. It learns the landscape and adapts. It curves around obstacles, slows when necessary, gathers strength in stillness, and when the moment's right, it carves entirely new channels. Natural systems respond to disruption with this same intelligence. When forests burn, they don't immediately rush to regrow. They pause. They allow the soil to restore its nutrients, and only then do new shoots begin appearing. Even in music, a melody's power comes not just from the notes themselves, but from the spaces between them. Those pauses shape how we experience the rhythm emotionally. That's the energetic signature of trust. It's quiet, yet it shapes everything in its field. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning your intentions. It means relaxing your grip enough to allow alignment to show itself naturally. When we stop clinging to one specific version of how things must unfold, we suddenly notice how many alternative pathways are available. Perhaps that delay in your timeline wasn't a setback, but a redirection. Perhaps losing that opportunity was the field creating space for something that fits you better. Once you begin perceiving surrender not as loss, but as collaboration with life itself, you start understanding that existence isn't something to control. It's something to participate in. This shift in perspective transforms how you navigate uncertainty. Instead of anxiously trying to control timing, you begin sensing timing. Anxiety depletes your energy because it loops in resistance, fighting against what is. Trust amplifies your energy because it moves with the current that's already flowing. Right before breakthrough moments, this difference becomes unmistakable. Things that took forever suddenly resolve effortlessly. People who can help appear at exactly the right moment. Doors open where solid walls used to stand. It appears magical, but it's really just alignment becoming visible once interference fades. Now let me share something that might shift how you see this entire process. Your consciousness isn't a passive observer of reality. It's an active participant in reality's construction. Quantum physics discovered this decades ago, though ancient wisdom traditions knew it for millennia. The double-slit experiment showed us that particles behave differently depending on whether they're being observed. The act of observation literally affects the behavior of matter at the quantum level. Your attention isn't neutral, it's creative. Where you place your focus, energy flows. What you give attention to begins organizing itself in response to that attention. This means the quality of consciousness you bring to these days before October 31st actually matters. Not in some abstract spiritual way, but in a measurable, observable way. When you approach uncertainty with anxiety and control, you're collapsing probability fields toward outcomes that match that frequency. When you approach the same uncertainty with trust and presence, you're collapsing probability fields toward entirely different outcomes. Same circumstances, different consciousness, different results. This isn't positive thinking or manifestation tricks. This is how reality actually functions at the quantum level. And here's where it gets even more interesting. You're not doing this alone. Consciousness isn't isolated. It's interconnected. When you shift your frequency, you affect the field around you. Other people feel it, even if they can't name what they're feeling. Opportunities begin appearing because you're vibrating at a frequency that attracts them. Resources show up because your energetic signature is broadcasting a different signal. You become magnetic to what matches your consciousness, and you become invisible to what doesn't. This is why two people can live in the same city, work in the same field, have similar skills, yet have completely different experiences. It's not luck, it's frequency. As we move closer to what's approaching, especially these days leading toward October 31st, this might be your moment to practice that quality of trust, to stop forcing the process and start listening to what it's already communicating. Because when we finally stop demanding our preferred timing, we begin recognizing the timing that's been patiently waiting for us all along. Have you noticed certain patterns repeating in your life when you're on the edge of transformation? You keep seeing specific number sequences, like seeing the same digits on clocks, receipts, or license plates. You overhear conversations that mirror thoughts you've been having privately. plans pause without explanation, or people from your past reappear precisely when you thought they were permanently gone. It feels coincidental until you look back and realize everything was quietly pointing in the same direction the entire time. Consciousness communicates like this, never shouting, but consistent enough that you can't help sensing there's meaning in the repetition. Systems have their own language for signaling before visible transformation happens. Imagine it like an energetic network humming beneath surface reality, releasing small signals before the full transmission begins. Those signals might appear as delays, intuitive nudges, or coincidences that feel almost impossibly timed. We label them signs, but they're actually data, feedback loops, showing us that something in our reality field is adjusting in response to what we've been emanating. Sometimes the system pauses because it's synchronizing variables you don't have visibility into yet. You feel ready to move forward, but the circumstances surrounding you are still catching up to match your frequency. Most people miss these signals completely because they're busy forcing the next step. We push timelines. We check messages compulsively. We reach out again, trying to accelerate an answer. When nothing responds immediately, that silence becomes unbearable. So we fill it with more activity. What we don't realize is that this constant motion makes the message harder to receive. It's like talking over someone who's trying to give you the information you need. The signals don't stop. They just get buried in the noise we create through impatience. You can probably recall moments when this happened. Maybe you were expecting a call that felt like it would determine everything. The day passed with no call, and the longer you waited, the more convinced you became that you'd missed your opportunity entirely. Then a week later, something unexpected emerged that made infinitely more sense than the original option ever could have. Or perhaps you planned something meticulously, a trip, a launch, an important conversation, and it collapsed for reasons that seemed arbitrary at the time. Months later, you realized the timing would have been completely wrong. The system wasn't sabotaging you, it was protecting your alignment. That's what resistance blinds us to. When things don't unfold according to our plans, we interpret it as failure or bad fortune. But if you pause the frustration momentarily, that same event begins looking like intelligence. Every door that won't open, every inexplicable delay, every meeting that doesn't materialize, these are all part of how the system recalibrates your trajectory. If storms didn't redirect ships, they'd sail directly into danger. Life, in its own quiet wisdom, redirects us as well. The key is learning to notice the redirections instead of fighting them. Calm observation transforms what appears chaotic into guidance. Instead of asking, "Why isn't this working?" you begin asking, "What is this showing me?" That single shift unlocks a completely different quality of awareness. You might notice a particular word appearing across different contexts. You might experience sudden clarity while journaling or during a walk, like a transmission revealing itself only when you stop chasing it. Reflection creates space for the system to display its next move. You begin recognizing that the dots were never separate. You simply needed to slow down enough to let the pattern come into focus. Even delays start to look different through this lens. You see them not as obstacles, but as synchronization mechanisms. When a project or connection stalls, it might be waiting for new elements to enter the equation. Someone else's readiness, a resource you didn't have access to yet, a state of consciousness you hadn't reached. By releasing urgency, you join the timing rather than battling against it. That's when synchronicity feels almost effortless. Opportunities emerge that make too much sense to be random. It's not magic. It's feedback responding to your stillness instead of your struggle. Now, what we're exploring today barely scratches the surface of how you become a conscious broadcaster rather than an unconscious receiver. If you're feeling the pull to understand the complete system behind frequency transmission, how to move from survival static into the ascending currents that actually create reality, I've mapped the entire journey in Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It contains the step-by-step practices for embodying each of the 9 master frequencies that transform you from someone seeking alignment to someone who is the alignment itself. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Let me give you a practice you can use right now to start cultivating this quality of trust. It's simple but profound in its effects. Several times throughout your day, especially when you notice yourself getting anxious or trying to control an outcome, pause. Just stop whatever you're doing for 30 seconds. Close your eyes if you can. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Take 3 deep breaths, slower than feels natural. As you exhale each time, silently say to yourself, I release control and I trust the process. Feel your body softening with each breath. Notice the tension releasing from your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. This isn't just a calming technique, though it does calm your nervous system. You're literally reprogramming your energetic signature. You're training your consciousness to default to trust instead of control. You're creating new neural pathways that support flow instead of force. Do this consistently for the next few weeks leading up to October 31st, and you'll notice something remarkable. Situations that would have triggered anxiety start feeling more manageable. Delays that would have frustrated you start revealing their purpose sooner. Your intuition becomes clearer because you're not drowning it out with mental noise. And here's what happens when you combine this practice with conscious awareness of the signs appearing in your life. You start moving through your days with a different quality of presence. You're not passively waiting for things to happen, but you're also not frantically trying to make things happen. You're in active collaboration with the intelligence that's orchestrating reality. You're dancing with life instead of wrestling with it. And in that dance, everything becomes easier. Not because circumstances change, but because you've changed the consciousness you're bringing to those circumstances. As we move toward October 31st, the volume of these signals often amplifies. Small coincidences feel louder. Emotions rise with more intensity. That's the system directing your attention toward what's ready to realign in your experience. These weeks aren't about adding more tasks to your list. They're about refining your perception. Every symbol, every delay, every moment that catches your intuition might be information pointing ahead of the visible curve. If you listen closely enough, you can sense where resistance transforms into flow. Preparation, then, isn't about adding another action item. It's about becoming still enough to hear what's already moving toward you. But here's what no one tells you about these threshold moments. They're asking something specific of you. They're quietly requesting trust. Not the blind faith kind of trust, but the embodied knowing that you're part of a larger intelligence that's orchestrating more than your limited perception can grasp. When you feel yourself wanting to grip tighter, that's your cue to soften. When you feel the urge to force clarity, that's your invitation to sit in the mystery a bit longer. Take a moment right now and feel into your body. Notice where you're holding tension. That tension is often where you're trying to control an outcome. Breathe into those spaces, let them soften. This isn't passive. This is active surrender, which is one of the most powerful states you can access. Because when you're in active surrender, you're saying yes to life's intelligence while also remaining present and responsive. You're not giving up. You're giving in to the flow that knows more than your thinking mind ever could. There's a difference between passive resignation and active surrender that most people never understand. Passive resignation says, "Nothing I do matters, so why bother?" It's giving up from a place of defeat, collapsing into helplessness. Active surrender says, "I've done what I can do. Now I trust the process to reveal the next step." It's releasing control from a place of empowerment, recognizing that you're co-creating with forces far more intelligent than your individual will. One depletes your energy, the other amplifies it. One disconnects you from life, the other deepens your participation in it. Here's something profound that happens when you truly understand this. You begin noticing that everything before October 31st isn't about moving faster or doing more. It's about tuning in more precisely. There's a quiet recalibration happening beneath all the mental noise, and rushing only obscures it further. The more you release the need to control outcomes, the clearer your actual direction becomes. Let the system, your natural rhythm, your intuition, your inner timing guide you for once instead of your anxiety or your ego's preferences. Release the steering wheel and observe how things begin organizing themselves when you stop forcing them into place. The universe doesn't need your tension or your worry. It needs your trust and your presence. The greatest preparation you can make right now isn't another strategy or plan. It's presence itself. The most powerful move available to you in this moment is to breathe deeply, stay open to what wants to emerge, and trust the intelligence that's been orchestrating your life all along, even when you couldn't see it. Right now, I want you to do something. Take a moment and comment below with this exact phrase. Write this: "I trust the timing of my transformation." Not because I'm asking you to engage with this video for the algorithm, though that helps more people find this message. I'm asking because declaring this into the field matters. When you write those words, you're not just typing. You're creating a vibrational statement. You're interrupting the old pattern of doubt and announcing a new one. You're sending a signal to the quantum field that you're ready to align with what's coming, rather than resist it. So pause right now. Comment below, "I trust the timing of my transformation." Let that declaration anchor into your consciousness. And if what we're exploring here is touching something real inside you, if this frequency is resonating with something you've been sensing but couldn't name, then I invite you to subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this space we're creating together. This isn't about consuming content. This is about joining a movement of people who are choosing to see reality differently, who are learning to trust the invisible intelligence that guides us, who are practicing presence instead of panic. Subscribe to stay connected to this frequency, to this conversation that's happening at the intersection of science and spirit, of consciousness and reality. Because here's what's becoming clear. As October 31st approaches, more people are going to feel this threshold energy. More people are going to sense that something's shifting. And the more of us who choose to meet that shift with trust instead of fear, with presence instead of control, the more powerfully that energy amplifies. We're not separate individuals having isolated experiences. We're nodes in a collective consciousness field. And when enough of us shift our frequency, the entire field begins reorganizing itself. This is what quantum physics has been trying to tell us all along. The observer affects the observed. Your consciousness isn't separate from reality. It's actively creating reality through where you place your attention, through what you believe is possible, through how you respond to uncertainty. When you choose trust over control, you're not just changing your personal experience. You're actually affecting the probability field of what can manifest. You're collapsing potential realities into actualized ones through the quality of your presence. Think about the implications of this for a moment. Every time you choose trust over anxiety, you're not just feeling better emotionally. You're literally restructuring the quantum field around you. Every time you release control and surrender to the flow, you're not just being spiritual or positive. You're engaging with the fundamental mechanics of how reality constructs itself. You're working with the physics of consciousness, not against it. This is why spiritual practices aren't just feel-good exercises. They're technologies for reality creation. They're methods for aligning your consciousness with the creative forces that shape existence. And the beautiful paradox is that the less you try to force outcomes, the more powerfully outcomes align in your favor. The less you grip, the more you receive. The more you surrender, the more control you actually have. Not control in the dominating sense, but control in the sense of mastery, of dancing skillfully with life rather than fighting it. This is the secret that mystics and quantum physicists both discovered from different directions. Reality responds to consciousness, and the quality of consciousness that creates the most powerful results isn't force. It's flow, it's trust, it's presence. So these final days before October 31st carry profound potential. Not because the date itself is magical, but because you're becoming more conscious of the threshold, and consciousness is the only tool you've ever needed to transform anything. Every great spiritual tradition and every cutting-edge scientific framework points to the same truth. Reality is far more fluid and responsive than we've been taught. It's waiting for us to stop trying to control it and start co-creating with it. What would happen if you approached the rest of October with this understanding? What if instead of worrying about what's coming, you trusted that everything unfolding is happening for your alignment? What if you saw every delay as divine timing, every closed door as redirection towards something better, every moment of uncertainty as an invitation to deepen your trust? Your entire experience would shift. Not because circumstances changed, but because you changed the consciousness you're bringing to those circumstances. This is the real preparation. Not planning or strategizing, though those have their place. The real preparation is cultivating the quality of consciousness that can receive what's coming. It's developing the trust that allows you to move with change instead of against it. It's building the awareness that recognizes guidance even when it doesn't look like what you expected. And here's what's profound. This isn't work you do once and check off your list. This is a practice you return to moment by moment. Every time you notice yourself gripping, you return to trust. Every time you catch yourself forcing, you return to flow. Every time you feel resistance rising, you return to breath and presence. This is the spiritual practice that changes everything, not because it's complicated, but because it's so simple that most people overlook it. Let me share one more thing before we close. There's a reason you found this message right now. There's a reason these words are landing with you at this particular moment. It's not accident or algorithm, though those played their role. It's resonance. Something in you was already vibrating at a frequency that could receive this transmission. You were already moving toward this understanding. This video is just a confirmation. a mirror reflecting back what you already know deep down, but maybe haven't had the language to express. That knowing you're feeling right now? That sense of recognition, like you're remembering something you forgot rather than learning something new? Trust that. That's your consciousness recognizing truth. That's your inner guidance system saying, yes, this aligns. This is the direction. That feeling is more reliable than any external authority or expert opinion. You have an internal compass that always knows the truth. The question is whether you're quiet enough to hear it, whether you trust it enough to follow it. And I want to address something that might be coming up for you as you're absorbing all of this. You might be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but how do I actually live this way when my life feels chaotic? When bills are due and relationships are strained and my job is stressful and the world feels overwhelming? How do I trust when everything around me seems to be pushing me toward control and fear? This is the question that matters most. Because spiritual understanding that doesn't translate into daily life isn't understanding at all. It's just another escape, another way to avoid the reality we're actually living in. Here's the truth. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need to quit your job or end your relationships or move to a monastery. That's not what trust looks like. Trust looks like choosing differently in small moments throughout your day. It looks like catching yourself mid-anxiety spiral and taking 3 conscious breaths instead of spinning out further. It looks like noticing when you're trying to force a conversation or an outcome and consciously softening your approach. It looks like pausing before you send that aggressive email or make that fear-based decision and asking yourself, what would trust do right now? These small choices compound. This is how transformation actually happens. Not through dramatic overnight changes, but through consistent micro-adjustments in how you respond to life. Every single time you choose trust over control, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're creating new pathways in your brain. You're shifting your default frequency. And over days and weeks and months, those small shifts create massive transformation. You look back and realize you're not the same person anymore. Not because you forced yourself to change, but because you practiced choosing differently until different became your new normal. What's one small way you're choosing trust over control today? Share it below. Your declaration might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now. The practices I'm sharing with you aren't separate from your daily life. They are your daily life. Every moment is an opportunity to practice. Every interaction is a chance to embody this understanding. Every challenge is an invitation to trust more deeply. You don't need special circumstances or perfect conditions. You just need willingness. Willingness to notice when you're gripping. Willingness to choose breath over reaction. Willingness to trust that life is working with you, not against you, even when it doesn't feel that way. Before we close, I want you to do one more thing. In the comments below, drop one word, just one word that captures the energy or intention you're choosing to embody moving forward. Maybe it's trust. Maybe it's flow. Maybe it's surrender or presence or alignment. Whatever word comes to you, write it down there. This isn't casual interaction. This is you placing your energetic signature into the quantum field. This is you declaring who you're choosing to become. This is your contribution to the collective frequency we're building together. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. Subscribe not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent with this understanding. To stay elevated above the noise and the fear that dominates so much of our world. To stay aligned with the truth that consciousness creates reality, and we get to choose what kind of consciousness we're cultivating. Because the more of us who embody this trust, who practice this presence, who live from this understanding, the more the world begins reflecting that truth back to us. We're not waiting for the world to change so we can feel better. We're changing our consciousness, and the world reorganizes itself in response. That's how powerful you actually are. That's how much your awareness matters. This community we're building isn't just about watching videos and consuming information. It's about collective transformation. Every person who shifts their consciousness toward trust creates a ripple effect that touches everyone they interact with. Every person who chooses presence over panic contributes to a morphic field of awakened awareness that makes it easier for others to awaken. You're not alone in this. You're part of a global consciousness shift that's been building momentum for decades, and October 31st is just one of many threshold moments where that shift becomes more visible, more tangible, more undeniable. And here's something powerful to understand about this collective shift. When you practice trust, when you embody presence, when you choose flow over force, you're not just helping yourself. You're actually making it easier for everyone around you to access those states. Consciousness is contagious. Have you ever walked into a room where someone was anxious and felt your own anxiety spike? Or been around someone deeply calm and felt yourself relax without them saying a word? That's consciousness affecting consciousness. That's the field responding to the frequencies present within it. So when you do this work, when you cultivate trust in these days leading to October 31st, you're contributing to the collective field. You're making it easier for your partner to trust, for your children to feel safe, for your co-workers to relax. For strangers you pass on the street to sense that maybe everything isn't as chaotic as it seems. This is how consciousness evolution actually happens. Not through isolated individuals achieving enlightenment on mountaintops, but through ordinary people in ordinary circumstances choosing extraordinary presence in their daily lives. You are a lighthouse. Whether you realize it or not, your frequency broadcasts outward constantly. The question is, what are you broadcasting? Fear or trust? Control or surrender? Resistance or flow? Every moment you're choosing. And every choice affects not just you, but everyone within your energetic field. This is the responsibility and the power of conscious living. You're not separate from the world. You are the world, experiencing itself through your unique perspective. When you shift, the world shifts. Consider rewatching this transmission each morning as you move through these final days before October 31st. Let it recalibrate your frequency at the start of each day. And if someone in your life is gripping too tightly right now, struggling with control or anxiety about what's coming, share this with them. When you pass along these consciousness principles, you're not just helping them, you're deepening your own embodiment of these truths and creating energetic ripples that accelerate the collective awakening we're all part of. So as you move through these remaining days before October 31st, remember this: everything is already moving in your favor. The delays are divine timing. The uncertainty is creating space for something new. The discomfort is old patterns dissolving. Trust this process. Trust your own inner knowing. Trust that you were guided to this message at exactly the right moment because you're ready for what's coming. The world doesn't need your tension or your worry. It needs your trust. It needs your presence. It needs you to remember who you actually are beneath all the conditioning and fear. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're a conscious creator participating in the unfolding of reality itself. Own that power, live from that truth, and watch as everything shifts to match the frequency you're choosing to embody. The greatest preparation isn't action, it's presence. The strongest move you can make right now is to breathe, stay open, and trust what's unfolding. This isn't the end of our conversation. This is just the beginning. The universe is conspiring in your favor. October 31st is just the next milestone in a journey that's been orchestrating itself perfectly all along. Trust the signal. Trust the timing. Trust yourself. Now, if you're ready to understand what happens when you fully embody this trust, when you stop identifying as separate from the field and realize you are the field itself, there's something profound waiting for you. The final phase of awakening. When you realize you are the field, explores the complete shift from observer to observed, from creator to creation itself. This is where everything we've discussed today culminates into pure embodied knowing. You'll find it right here on the channel.